Hello, my name is Katie Madden, and today I'm going to be addressing the question, does where you are born make you fat? Many factors contribute to the rising rate of obesity in the United States today. Nutrition, genetics, environment, viruses, sex, and the microbiome all interact to contribute to one's individual risk for becoming overweight or obese. After a particularly memorable interaction with an Uber driver, I've decided to use this Fed Talk to hone in on how where you grow up can influence your risk for obesity. I will start by getting into the role of culture and geography, then discuss how climate can actually change the physiology of your body's fat cells, and finally, explore the effects of growing up in a food desert. So, starting with geography and culture. I was on my way to school about a month ago when I struck up a conversation with my Uber driver, James. James was eager to share that he was from Mississippi and had recently lost over 100 pounds. His secret? Breaking his habit of drinking 10 Mountain Dews a day. Initially, I was shocked at the sheer volume that this man once consumed on a daily basis. I was also surprised that it took a conversation with his doctor for him to realize that this was making him obese. One 12-ounce can of Mountain Dew contains 170 calories, and these calories add up. So why did James think it was normal to drink that much soda, while I was shocked by these numbers? After some reflection, I realized that where we grew up, and thus how we were enculturated to relate to food and weight, play a role in our different attitudes. Growing up in the Bay Area in California myself, I was a part of a very health-conscious, sometimes superficial culture that idealized a skinny body and an active lifestyle. I was taught that soda was inherently bad, but James experienced a different culture. Drinking the amount of soda he did was not out of the ordinary. Looking at this map of adult obesity, it is clear that rates of obesity differ based on location, with trends toward heavier weights in the southern and eastern states. In 2017, James's home state of Mississippi had the second highest rate of adult obesity in the U.S., with 37.3% of adults at a BMI of 30 plus. In contrast, in my home state of California, just over a quarter of adults were obese. Differences in poverty and education level may be at play in causing this unique geographic trend. I'll go on to explore poverty's role in my discussion of food deserts, but cultural differences across the country in activity level or how we relate to food is certainly an important factor. You may be born into a place where an active, consciously healthy lifestyle is encouraged, or one where obesogenic habits are normalized, thus increasing your risk for becoming obese yourself. But what happens when you are born into a place that actually impacts the physiology of your fat tissue? This phenomenon occurs when humans are in environments of extreme cold stress. Let's take a look at the details and differences in human body fat to determine exactly how environmental temperature affects adiposity. In general, humans have adapted to have mainly two types of fat, white adipose tissue and brown adipose tissue. Both serve different functional roles in the body. White adipose tissue mainly plays a role in energy storage. White adipocytes have few mitochondria and a single large lipid droplet where triglycerides are stored. In contrast, brown adipocytes have a high number of mitochondria and many much smaller lipid droplets. Brown adipocytes' mitochondria are unique in that they express uncoupling protein 1, which allows for the dissipation of stored energy as heat. Thus, brown adipose tissue plays a crucial role in thermogenesis. A study by Lee et al. In 2014 used PET and CT scans to carefully analyze how temperature affected brown adipose tissue volume in 5 men over the course of 4 months. They found not only a 42% increase in brown adipose tissue volume upon exposure to cold, but also a 10% increase in fat metabolic activity and improved insulin sensitivity at a temperature of 19 degrees Celsius versus 27 degrees. This study is just one of many providing evidence that growing up in a colder climate actually leads to higher volumes of brown adipose tissue versus living in a warmer climate. People are also quick to label brown adipose tissue as good fat because it burns calories to make heat, whereas white adipose tissue stores calories. The fact that large amounts of white fat are characterized with an increased risk of metabolic syndrome also has led to generalizing white fat as bad. But generalizations such as this are unfair, especially because it ignores the adaptive ability of white adipose tissue to retain heat. One study by Risica et al. Studied fat content and its distribution in Alaska natives of the cold Bering Straits region. Unfortunately, the study was quick to predict that larger than average fat depots in native Alaskan women would lead to future increases in diabetes and other metabolic problems, without taking any metabolic data and ignoring white adipose tissue's capacity to insulate. Lipids in adipose tissue retain more heat than any other macromolecule. Perhaps what is a more likely scenario is that Native Alaskan women have higher levels of white adipose tissue as an adaptation to the extreme cold climate that they live in. In addition to climate of where you live impacting individual fat levels, research shows that one's local food environment impacts the risk for obesity as well. Food deserts are defined as areas without nearby supermarkets, thus making it difficult to get affordable, healthy foods. Food deserts may be an important contributor as to why low-income neighborhoods and African Americans in the U.S. have elevated rates of obesity. Currently, 23.5 million people live in food deserts, and they're disproportionately found in disadvantaged areas. One 2014 study by Ghosh Dastidar et al. Simultaneously measured obesity, distance to store, and store prices. Unsurprisingly, they found that distance to store and prices were positively associated with obesity. The data also suggested that people of low socioeconomic status may be willing to travel longer distances for cheaper food, but that the environments of these low-priced stores themselves seem to actively encourage unhealthy eating habits. Ghosh Dastidar et al. Found that low and high-priced stores did not actually vary significantly in the availability of food, but that fruits and vegetables dominated the view from the main entrance in 71% of high-priced stores and only 14% of low-priced stores. On average, low-priced stores had 7.7 displays to promote healthy foods, while high-priced stores had almost 3 times as many displays promoting healthy foods. This increased exposure to marketing, encouraging an obesogenic diet, may lead to increased consumption of unhealthy foods and a higher rate of obesity as a result in a food desert. One study by Cooksey-Stowers et al. Looked at the correlation of food swamps with obesity in order to take into account not only access to food, but the health quality of this food as well. Food swamps are defined as areas with a high density of establishments selling high-calorie fast food and junk food. The study found that food swamps are actually a better predictor of obesity than food deserts are, and this effect was particularly strong in areas with large inequality or where residents were less mobile. This study suggests that people often sacrifice quality of food for convenience. And when assessing access to healthy food, one needs to take into consideration the built environment and individual contexts. People living in unsafe neighborhoods or with a lack of time due to work schedules may be more likely to eat unhealthy fast food that is nearby than to go out of their way for healthy options. So, does where you are born determine if you will be fat? Ultimately, it does play a role, but obesity is influenced by too many factors for geography alone to determine your fate. Geography is linked to culture, and this affects how you approach food. Temperature may also affect your fat distribution of white and brown adipose tissue. Finally, the socioeconomic geography of your home and local access to food influences your risk of obesity as well. Understanding how these factors interact and affect different populations of people differently is key in understanding the rise of the obesity epidemic in the United States today. Thank you, and here are my sources.